All right, man. Let me know if y'all can hear me. How's everybody? Y'all can hear me for the one in the chat, fam. I don't know if my headphones and my mic is fucking. It said 11:20%. I appreciate it. Yeah, they were. They definitely changed it. Because I got 11:30. It's 11:35 now. But it's going to be interesting. I think they might announce Matt Ryan in the position that he's going to play today. They restructured Kirk Cousins' contract. It probably means they're going to let him go in March. I think they're going to bring in a new GM and a new head coach. Okay, so we got Arthur Franklin.
Good morning, everybody. Sorry we're a few minutes late. Appreciate you all being here at the Arthur M. Blank Family Office and those who are joining on the live stream. Before we get into questions, just a couple of housekeeping items. As you know, we have 3 open searches. There's a lot of reporting out there about the candidates and other things. Just want to confirm again that we will announce completed interviews once completed. We will not be announcing scheduled interviews. So once we've completed an interview for all 3 searches, we will announce those, and we will have press conferences with all of the selected leaders that will be joining our organization. So we're going to start now. Just an important note, those interviews with the president of football are starting today. Arthur has a full schedule of meetings and interviews today and tomorrow. So we're going to go for about 20, 25 minutes, and we'll wrap up. I'm going to go ahead and start with Mark Raimondi and Joe Patrick. We'll go from there.
Wherever you are. Okay. Hey,
the team finished on a 4-game winning streak, and there was some speculation that might be enough to I guess, keep the status quo. Why did that not end up being the case?
You evaluate a team throughout the entire season, and in this case, over a couple of years, but let's say this for this season. And, it was my conclusion as the season went on that we could not achieve or not achieving at the level that I thought this roster was capable of performing at. It wasn't for lack of trying. It wasn't for lack of effort. It wasn't for lack of commitment. I have great respect and affection both for Raheem, who I've known for 11 years, and Terry for 5 years. The fact that the team won the last 4 games, I think, is a credit to the players, a credit to the coach and coaching staff. But at the end of the day, I didn't think we achieved the level that we're capable of. And I think that it's an expression that I often use, that good is the enemy of great. And I think we're capable of getting to another level. So that was the reason we made the decision.
Joe?
It was not a light switch went on and off. It was kind of a phased process over time. An awful lot of factors that go into it.
Arthur over here. Joe Patrick, 92.9 The Game. I'll just ask simply, what went into ultimately the decision to let go of Terry Fontenot and Raheem Morris, both individually?
I'd give, it's just a similar answer. I just concluded that I didn't think that those 2 gentlemen, as fine of people as they are, as much as I care about them personally and their families, et cetera, that they were providing the kind of leadership at the level to get us to the next level. And I felt that given the quality of the young players we have on offense and on defense, and some seasoned veterans that are excellent as well, that we needed to move forward, both in terms of a change as a head coach and a general manager. Very tough decision. It's a performance-driven league. All sports are, and certainly NFL is no different than that. And so they understand that, and certainly I represent the fans. I've said this many times. I view myself as a custodian of the franchise for the fans. As they felt pain and anguish and frustration during the year, I felt pain and frustration and anger during the year myself. So it was a very thoughtful, balanced decision that took time to reach, but I think it was the right decision for us. And fundamentally, we wanted to add somebody who's a president of football. And it was kind of clear on the titles, not football operations, it's president of football, because sometimes people could interpret that as being, well, they're responsible for the operations stuff, the backroom stuff, administrative stuff. But this person that we're trying to hire will be responsible for everything that relates to a football and grass. And so both general manager and head coach will report directly to that person, who will report to me.
Ken?
I guess I'll come and ask. John Harbaugh is available. Can you evaluate him as a potential candidate?
Well, I mean, John has been one of the most successful coaches in the last 20 years in our league. has won at every level, and so he would certainly be a candidate we would want to spend some time with. Whether or not he would have an interest in Atlanta, I don't know. I read earlier today he's not taking any interviews this week, and probably will start this coming week. So I'm sure we'll have him on our cycle, assuming he's willing to take an interview with us.
Let's go to hometown, and then we'll go over here, and then back to Charles Odom.
How you doing, Arthur? Good morning. Question, two-parter for you and for the process with the search firms. What guardrails do you think are in place this time to ensure that the final decision is a better one than the last two? And are you going to do anything differently? And will the search firms do anything differently in their approach to getting to the final decisions?
Well, I think I'd give you several parts to respond to that. One, as we all go through life, we all have life experiences, and hopefully you grow through them, you learn from them, and then when you have the same opportunity to make another decision, you make it a little bit differently if it was a mistake previously. So I think we've learned, this last sequence, some things we'd probably do a little bit differently in terms of points of emphasis. Both of these firms, Sportsology, we retained several months ago to do a deep dive on the health, if you will, of the football operations side of our business. They've got great experience in a multiple of sports in that regard, including the NFL. They pointed out some things to us, so they'll help with the search particularly in terms of the general manager search. And ZRG is one of the leading search firms in the world of sports and NFL and football. So we'll be using their talents as well to help screen and filter and ask the right kinds of questions. Our search committee will be structured a little bit differently than it has been in the past. Still be made up of a component of people that represent our leadership and all areas of our businesses, but we're going to put heavy emphasis. We're hiring this president of football first. That's the goals, and over the next couple of days, we have a series of interviews set up. We want to get that person in their seat and have them lead the interviews for the head coach and general manager position going forward. Does that answer your question?
What will you do?
What will I do?
Yeah, those are the last two sides.
What will I be doing? I'll be doing the same thing that I'll always be doing, which is being available, providing, not only the financial resources, which is the easiest part of my job, but, make sure the culture is maintained, sharing any wisdom, making sure people working cohesively together with the same goals in mind, and doing whatever I can do to support. That's my job, is really to support. I'm a servant leader. If you look at, an inverted triangle, which we talk about in our business all the time, the guy that's way at the bottom is me. I'm there as a support system for all of our businesses, and certainly football is no different than that.
Back here, and then to Charles, and then
Arthur, right here.
Yes, sir.
Gary Chapman on SI. What role first up, what went into the decision to draft Michael Penix and also sign Kirk Cousins? Who made that decision? And then what role did you feel like this had in the process that you made to part ways with general manager and head coach?
Well, I think, we've talked about this a good bit in the past, but just a quick summary. I think, when Kirk became available, I think the football folks on, the coaching side and personnel side both felt this was a athlete who performed at the highest level for 14 years in our league, coming off of an injury. Our medical staff felt the injury was at a point where he could play and play effectively. So we stepped up, and because, we want to win, we felt that was the right decision at that time. We drafted Michael because at that time we felt, and still do feel, that Michael was one of the most talented quarterbacks in the draft, and that thinking about the future and not going through a lull, we didn't have a franchise quarterback in place, which is a version of, I don't know what the right word would be, but it's a very difficult position to be in the NFL. It's hard to win in the NFL without a franchise quarterback. It doesn't be great. It has to be really good and solid. So we felt that someone like Michael we could draft, bring along for a couple of years. At some point, Kirk might age out. Really hasn't. He played well. Again, the first half of last year, certainly, we were 6-3 and 2-game lead in our division. before, his play changed. And Michael stepped up in the first part of this year. So we look forward to having Michael back. He's had good surgery. We spoke to the medical staff. It seems to have gone well. Kirk, we'll see what will happen with him going forward. But there were decisions about winning now over the next 2 to 3 years, and then bringing in a young quarterback and not putting the pressure on a rookie quarterback to have to perform at that level, but giving him an opportunity to learn under an experienced, seasoned veteran guy who has really been a great leader for us, I would say, over the last couple of years, both when he was playing in a support role to Michael last year, and then this year, support role to Michael and stepping up and playing at a very competitive level for us as well.
I will go Charles, Ladd, and then Bailey.
Since your interviews begin today for president of football, can you talk about what makes the ideal candidate? What are the qualifications, and are you open to considering someone who has no front office or executive experience?
I think the second part of your question has to do with Matt Ryan. My answer to the second part of the question, Matt is somebody we've had a long relationship with. We've continued to talk with. He is one of the candidates we'll be interviewing. My response to that would be Matt Ryan came into the league as a rookie in 2008, ended up leading a locker room of 53 for 14 years, leading in a huddle, being a great player, leading players, supporting coaches, et cetera. So his EQ and IQ when it comes to football is extraordinarily high. I've known Matt personally since 2008 and his family, and he's an outstanding individual, great community leader, and kind of person you'd certainly would want to consider in that position. But we have other candidates that we're interviewing as well over the next couple of days, starting this afternoon, this evening, and going into tomorrow and tomorrow night.
Yeah, Arthur, what did the consultants tell you about, the organization that led you to change the dynamics of the infrastructure? And, or is the hope that this will stop the streak of 8 losing seasons?
Mm-hmm. Well, I think they pointed out there were certain areas, without going into the detail, that from a support standpoint and building a roster and the quality of the analytics and some other areas that we could definitely improve upon. They felt areas of accountability and communication could be tightened up a little bit from what they have been. They spent a great deal of time. They interviewed close to 30 people, all one-on-one interviews with essentially everybody in the building, not with the coaching staff. With Raheem they did, and with Terry they did, but a lot of other folks they did. And they shared a very detailed report that was written with a lot of quality and drew certain conclusions, which I had a sensibility about myself before, but it was good to hear it confirmed as well. So that was all part of the process. But at the end of the day, the decisions were mine to make, and it's all part of the input that was important.
I'm pretty sure they're gonna ask about Richmond.
Bailey?
When you look at the head coach, I believe this will be.
I'm sorry, I can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
A little better, thank you.
When looking at the head coach position, I believe this will be the 7th position you'll hire for head coach. What do you feel like has been lacking there, and what is something you're hoping this round in the hire you can bring an edge to hopefully get this right?
Well, I think we've gotten a lot of things right with a lot of coaches over the years. I mean, I look back at the period of Mike Smith and Dan Quinn, and that those years when we had no history of winning, we won consistently during that 12-year period of time. I think you learn something from every experience you go through, and try to fine-tune the model and try to refine it and make it clearer as to what your expectations are. Make sure there's clear communications, the same vision. You're holding people accountable. Holding people accountable in a performance-based business, which is what the NFL is really important. It's easy to say that. Sometimes it's hard to do that because you're in a foxhole every Sunday. There are bullets flying all over the place, some at you, some you're shooting, and And so you develop this mentality of being together. So at times, I think that people, in my view, over 25 years in the NFL, there can be too much of a weight on loyalty and not enough of a weight on performance and holding people accountable in a more reasonable period of time. But, you have to be patient too, because you're dealing with system changes, you're dealing with new players, you're dealing with new orientations with players, moving them around. So change for the sake of change is very penal in the NFL. You want to be very thoughtful about it, not only on a personal level, but because it can impact the team in a negative way. You'll find those organizations that have achieved in the NFL at a relatively high level, one of the things they have consistently is continuity, not just with ownership, but continuity at a head coach and general manager level. We're adding a third component to it now with the president of football, which we think will add another level of quality, another level of emphasis and execution that we haven't had in the past.
We're going to go to Allison, then over to Terrence, then to Tori.
Arthur, I just wanted to clarify. So do you believe that Michael Penix Jr. is the franchise quarterback for the Falcons and is a prerequisite for this new head coach to also keep Jeff Ulbrich as the defensive coordinator with the way they finished?
Two answers, two questions. I do think Michael is our franchise quarterback. The injury he sustained was on his other knee. The surgeon felt 1,000% secure in the medical procedure they went through, and they really felt his knee was going to be even better than it was before. He's on a successful rehab program. He's back in Atlanta. He's committed mentally, physically. He feels good. So, yes, I would certainly see that. As it relates to Jeff Ulbrich, in my view, he did a really fine job for us this year. Certainly look at the record of sacks and just the overall performance of the defense was definitely better than it's been in the past. And you can't dictate to a new head coach, who their coaches are going to be. But I certainly would recommend to a new head coach that they consider Jeff based on his track record, not only here, but his track record before with us in Atlanta. They went to New York, and his experience there for certainly a couple of years was at the very top of the league too. So, I would certainly recommend somebody consider him, but it's not something we can require or mandate. The right head coach is going to want to put together their own staff, and they'll be working closely. In this case, it's not the president of football won't do the head coach's job, but it'll have a working partner who has great football knowledge in that position that they can help build the staff with.
All right,
Terrence, Tori, then Josh Kendall.
Yeah, Arthur, in the more than 20 years you and I have been talking, you've always been highly customer focused.
Yep.
So given all the no-shows the last 2 or 3 years, how much did that factor into your decisions, as far as the organization is concerned? And the second question would be, Raheem has mentioned a couple of times that when it came to the quarterback situations, that it was an organizational decision.
Mm-hmm.
So how much were you and Rich involved in that as opposed to just Terry himself?
The answer to the first part of the question, when you have no-shows, that's not a problem. It's an indication of a problem. So it's like,
it's a problem.
there's a fire caused someplace or what caused the fire. So that's the reason for the changes, is the cause of the fire, not the fire itself. But we definitely, we're here for our fans. I tell our players, whenever it's appropriate time, I just remind them, without fans, either watching them in person or watching them on TV, we have 22 guys playing sandlot football. And so they understand that. And so, and the fans give us more than the resources. They give us their time, their energy, their passion, their commitment, their family time. They give us a lot of things. So we owe it to them to step up and make the right decisions in their behalf. And I always view the fans as sitting on my shoulders, all of them, and looking at the decisions that I'm involved in and any thoughts that I'm sharing. What are the views of the fans? Doesn't mean they drive the franchise, but means they're obviously one of the major reasons we're here. The second part of your question was about, okay. Yeah, when you're making decisions, and I would say this is true for every owner in the National Football League. I know them all for, a long period of time. when you make significant decisions like the Kirk Cousins contract or probably who you're drafting in the first round, those kind of things, it becomes an organizational decision. I've been part of certain situations where that was not the case, and the result of that is never healthy. It's never healthy for the organization. So you want the organization to see the same vision, to buy into it, to support it, to all be in lockstep on those kinds of things. It doesn't mean you agree on everything. It means you have healthy debate before you make the decisions. But once you make them, you move forward together in support of those decisions.
So it wasn't true with Terry.
No, I mean, we would never have a situation in my 25 years, so I don't think it'd be healthy any place in the NFL or any organization for one person to be making a decision that's going to affect everybody in a variety of ways at a fairly deep level without input and guidance and shared wisdom from other people. At the end of the day, somebody has to make that final call, and I understand that.
So who made the final call?
It's not normally going to be one person.
Tori, Josh, and then Gabe.
Kind of
If
to
one
that
person's gonna
end,
make the call,
when it comes to the
but
president
that one
of
person
football
doesn't
row, I
make
know we
the
kind of talked around it a little bit, but what led to the decision to add that to the organizational structure, and what are attributes within an individual that could lead to success within that role?
I think one of the reasons we felt it was necessary is that I'm not involved on a day-to-day basis in our football business. I'm involved, but not on a day-to-day basis, and shouldn't be. Because I have authority doesn't mean I have the knowledge. So we can never confuse the two. And if you get a leader who's in that position, they get confused, they can really make some bad decisions. So I've never been confused about that. So we wanted somebody else to have input and guidance and hold the accountability and work closely with the head coach and general manager to build their capacities, the coaching staff, and building a roster, making sure it's consistently held within the vision that we have for the team, how we want to play ball on the offensive side of the team, on the special team side, on the defensive side of the ball. So that's the biggest role that person will play. And if we bring in the right person, it'll make a big difference in my view. Obviously, you still got to hire the great head coach, the great general manager, and the president of football will not be doing their jobs for them at all, but will be holding them accountable and giving input, wisdom, and guidance where necessary.
Josh.
To make sure I'm clear,
Yeah.
the quarterback, the fact that the Kirk Cousins, Michael Penix sort of dual additions didn't work out or haven't worked out the way you'd hoped through the first 2 years, was that part of the factor in firing Raheem and Terry?
No. I mean, this is and that's a clear no. This is a performance-based business. I mean, I'm disappointed the way we ended this last year. I mean, this current the year before this current year. But we ended up not performing well at the end of the year. We were in a strong position. This year there's a lot of peaks and valleys, too many peaks and valleys, too many levels that were not consistent throughout our play. So it's a combination of things over a period of time, but it had nothing to do with the decisions that we collaboratively made about Kirk Cousins or about Michael Penix.
And to make sure I'm clear, the new president of football will be the final say
Yes.
on draft picks, on roster construction.
Well,
on
I gave you a quick answer. Yes, you don't want. You're not going to find a head coach at the level we want to see, or a general manager at the level we want to see, that are going to cede their job to a president of football. And you're not going to find a president of football who is really a balanced leader and a thoughtful leader who wants to do the job of other people working for them. That never works in any organization, in any industry. So the general manager will do his job, the head coach will do their job. They both will be accountable to the president of football. So there'll be dialogue, exchanges, ideas, et cetera, et cetera. But at the end of the day, you want the head coach and general manager to have the final say in their areas of responsibility with the input and guidance from the president of football.
and finally, forgive me, given your track record with Rich McKay, was it a difficult decision for you to sort of fully remove him from the Falcons' decision-making process?
Well, I mean, Rich has a long storied history in the NFL. It goes back well over 30 years, but with us, over 20 years, and we won a lot of games when he was our general manager. He was part of that whole transition. He's moved on to a whole bunch of other really important things for us. He's CEO of AMBSC. What does that mean? It means that he's involved in the World Cup. He's involved in soccer, both Atlanta United and the new NWSL team. He'll be involved in a lot of community things. He chairs the Metro Chamber this coming year. I've done that once in my life in 2001. And that by itself is almost a full-time job. It's breakfast, lunch, dinners virtually every day, community meetings, leadership, things of that nature. So he's got a very full plate, and he will continue to serve as co-chair of the competition committee for the National Football League. So, and complete support of our commissioner, Roger Goodell, in that regard.
Blank.
Gabe, and then we'll wrap up with Carl and Chris. Yeah.
There are now 8 head coach openings.
Say again?
There are now 8 head coach openings, and some of these candidates are going to have options.
Mm-hmm.
What do you feel separates this team in this situation from the other vacancies?
I think it's a really good question. I think what separates us, and somebody will have to make a decision on their own judgment about the quality of the ownership, et cetera. But that is always a factor. I would say that generically, not because I'm sitting here, but to people who are in a head coach, GM position or position of football, president of football, versions of that. And there are a number of those around the NFL that exist in 3 or 4 or 5 other teams now. They want to know they have stability at ownership. They want to make sure the ownership is committed financially, emotionally, culturally, and provide the support that's necessary for them to be successful. I'm sorry, the second part of the question, I apologize.
Just how do you feel with your situation?
Okay, yeah, so and I look at our roster, and I look at the young players we have on both offense and defense. We had a really great draft class, in my opinion, this last year. We've had some other players carried over from a couple of years before that. So I like both sides of our roster. I like some of the seasoned vets we have as well. I love our stadium, voted #1 in the United States again for fan experience, and that's not unimportant. It's important to the players to have fans show up. Goes back to Terrence's question earlier. Players hear the fans, they see the fans, they want the seats filled. There's a lot of things that determine that. One is a competitive product on the field, but also the experience they have within the building itself. So I think all of those things, Atlanta is a great city, great market. And I think all those things are factors in somebody making a professional as well as a personal decision. Because you're talking to coaches and general managers, in many cases, if not all cases, they have families. And so they're making decisions not only for themselves, but for their wives or their wives' partners to help them make that decision, along with their kids and whatever. There's a lot of factors, but Atlanta's a great market too.
Oh.
Sorry.
Arthur, what do you say to the fans who are very frustrated? Obviously, you heard, I'm sure you heard from them. You just talked about your frustration. What do you say to the Falcon fans who are struggling with the idea that we can't seem to get this part of it right as far as the coach, general manager, et cetera? What's your message to them?
Well, I think you go back and look at our history since when we acquired the franchise in 2001. We've had a great 14-year run under two head coaches. We've won a bunch of games. The last 8 seasons clearly have been very disappointing. The losing seasons and not getting the playoffs both. You have a team this year that has a losing season and is in the playoffs. So we don't want to be in either one of those categories. We don't want to lose and get in the playoffs. We want to win and be in the playoffs. So we will commit our intellectual resources, our financial resources, any bit of intellect or wisdom we can bring from the outside, inside, to make sure we understand more clearly what is it we could do better. What is it we can set in terms of setting the expectations for a new head coach, general manager? What is a president of football, which is a position we've never had in the history of the Falcons, filled now? What that person is bringing to the table in terms of holding people accountable, making sure we maintain a vision. It's very difficult in this business or any sports business when you have too many changes become excessive. The hardest people it's on is the players. New systems, new language, new positions sometimes. So consistency at the top is very, very important, but the quality of the consistency is really important. So in my judgment, I've changes we've had to make in the past have always been with a 3-year tenure. In my opinion, in this case, after 2 years, I knew that we had to make the changes. So this wasn't a time lapse kind of situation. It was a performance lapse situation that, in my judgment, I felt after 2 years, Raheem and his team, and Terry after 5 years, I felt I've seen enough to know that we could do better than this in my view.
All right, we'll wrap it up with Chris Tamino.
Arthur, good morning. If it was a wellness check, that's Sportology.
I'm sorry, what?
If we're going to call it a wellness check, perhaps that's what Sportology did. It was a wellness check on the organization. What were one or two, maybe the most surprising things that you read about the organization, and how big a point of emphasis did they say there might be a murkiness when it comes to the hierarchy of power? President of football, let's do that. And then perhaps even with Rich, emphasizing once again that Atlanta Falcon football decisions are going to be made by people other than Rich going forward.
Yeah, well, I mean, let me just clear that up again for the third time. I mean, Rich was not the focus of the report. It's very clear. If I showed you his calendar and his schedule, I mean, he doesn't have time for anything else. So we've asked him to move away from his time with football, which was very limited over the last number of years. It was there, but very limited, to focus on all these other things that we're involved in. I think the big things coming out of the report, I said this earlier, was that, we have to have a consistent vision that everybody in the organization understands in terms of how we want to play the game consistently. You can go around the NFL and there are certain teams, I don't want to name which ones, but you all probably can in your own minds, that if you would project 5 years from today, how do you think that team will be playing? What the points of emphasis will be in that team? You probably could pretty well predict, the kind of ball they'll be playing. It might be changed a little bit, refined a little bit, but essentially, we need to have a clearer vision on offense, defense, and teams, how we're going to play. And then have a coaching staff that understands that clearly, have a GM that understands clearly how do you build players, bring them into the roster that match that system and that philosophy, and hold people accountable for their results and their decision-making and their performance. It is a performance-based business. It's a high-risk, high-reward kind of nature. That is the industry that we're in. And that's what we've chosen to be in, and we love the opportunity to do that. We have to make sure we represent all those values correctly and represent our fans the way they would expect us to. Not impulsively, but thoughtfully. But once decisions are made, you don't measure 3 years, 2 years, 1 year. When you see the facts come to you and you draw a conclusion and make a conclusion based on solid information, you make that decision as soon as you can. Hence, after 2 years, we've decided to move on from Raheem and staff and Terry and his group.
And just go back, was there anything surprising in their report of findings that?
I would say that one of the things that I probably was a little bit surprising was the lack of clarity on about the vision for the team, and that's that's in any business in any industry. We don't have clarity around vision about what you're trying to establish and trying to build. You could end up with a lot of disparate parts, everybody moving in different directions. And that means you're not only unsuccessful or partially unsuccessful, but you can be very inefficient. As laser focused as you can be in terms of exactly what you want to do, you're going to make better selections of players, coaches, and coaching staff, hold that kind of consistency in place. And then, you modify over time depending on what's happening in the game. The game is changing. The NFL has definitely moved to a more, focus on offense and defense over the years. But, you got to, particularly when it comes to the playoffs, teams that have really great defenses do well.
All right. Thank you all for being here. We've got to get Arthur off to interviews and meetings. Thank you.
Thank you all.
We'll
I appreciate it. Again, final word to the fans. Thank you for your patience, your support, your own wisdom collectively and individually. And we promise you that we're 100% committed to bring this back to the level that you would expect us to be at. So we appreciate that.
Thank you all.
All right, so that was the press conference of Arthur Blank. Hold on, let me put my music on so I can cook for a little second. I ain't gonna be on here too long. So basically, what I got from that is Arthur Blank just wasn't happy with not making the playoffs in a weak ass division. So a couple things we learned. Terry and his whole team got fired. And same with Raheem, which means Zach Robinson isn't here and Jeff Ulbrich isn't here. Now, what he did say was he would recommend Jeff Ulbrich. Looks like Jeff Ulbrich is the only person he would want to keep, him and Michael Penix. But I mean, Michael Penix is under contract, so there's really nothing that the new head coach can come in and do. But I do understand that if you're going after somebody like, John Harbaugh or Mike Tomlin, if he becomes available, or Matt LaFleur, if he becomes available, you don't want to tell them who their offensive and defensive coordinator is going to be. I get that. You can recommend them, but you don't want to hamstring a coach of like that magnitude. Now, a first-time OC or DC, fuck that. Your defensive coordinator is Ulbrich. But this kind of gives me an indication of where Arthur Blank might be going as it goes to a coach. Another thing with Rich McKay, where he talked about what Rich McKay would be doing, essentially Arthur's got him so busy he wouldn't be able to focus on football if he wanted to. Now, as far as the competition committee, I saw some people in the chat, in the live chat of the press conference as well, about how Rich McKay, how could he be on the committee if he's not related to football. Listen, Rich McKay has been on that committee for like 25 to 27 years or some ridiculous shit like that. He's tenured. They're not going to push him out. I think he's the longest tenured person on the committee. And aside from that, you have former football players. They have all kinds of people on that committee. So I don't think they're going to remove Rich McKay just because he's no longer part of football operations. It's a competition committee. So he's probably going to keep that job no matter what. So I'm not mad at that. I just don't want him anywhere in the building controlling football operations here. He can be on the committee. I don't give a damn. Another thing where he talked about having a president of football and what that role would entail. That's going to be interesting, because the way that I look at this is you have a coach who's an assistant manager. You have, compared to like a retail store, your coach is your assistant manager, your GM is the manager, and then the president of football is the regional manager. But I'm like, here's where it gets tricky, right? The GM has to have some teeth. He has to. And the president of football shouldn't be able to override that. I will say this. The president of football should be able to fire somebody. And I think between Terry and Raheem, I don't know which one had more power, because this special teams coach stayed the entire fucking season. And neither one pulled the trigger. Raheem didn't pull the trigger, neither did Terry. Now, I think if you add that extra layer, because he kept talking about the president of football and accountability, he would hold the GM and the head coach accountable. I think that's something that wasn't happening these 2 years, because there was too much stuff. And I'm like, okay, so Raheem had to have pulled the trigger on the wide receiver coach. He had to have, because there was really no reason to fire him, right? And the fact that there was no pushback from Terry. But when it came to the special teams coach, and again, I like Terry. But there were some things that I look at and I'm like, bruh, you knew the special teams coach was absolute trash. You could have fired him. You rank higher than Raheem. You could have fired the special teams coach. What the fuck was Raheem going to do? But he did not do that. So we probably had a toothless GM. And, you know, you can't survive 5 years. And listen, he made some good moves. He made some pretty damn good moves and swung for the fences, you know, right from the jump. But it's hard, man, to fire your head coach after 2 years and then keep you. And you've been here for 5 years and we haven't went to the playoffs. We haven't even won 9 games. So you're a casualty. So I think bringing in this president of football, if the GM can't make the decision and the head coach can't make the decision, well, goddamn it, you got a president that only reports to Arthur Blank. So, hey, listen, I'm getting the special teams coach up out of here. You know, the head coach loves him. The GM is on the fence. I'm going to get him the fuck up out of here. And he only reports to Arthur Blank. So with Rich McKay out of the building, soft allegedly, you're bringing in a new voice that apparently has some pull. He's not going to be picking the players. But the fact that, okay, I'm not doing the grocery shopping, that's up to y'all. That's up to y'all. I'm going to leave that up to the GM and the head coach. And again, if you're really going after a tenured head coach who's won something, you're not going to be able to control that draft room any fucking way. Because if you want your head coach to be allowed to bring in their OC and their DC, they're damn sure going to pick the players to come in too. And Art says, hey, man, I ain't in the building every day. I leave that to the football guys. Your president of football has to know too, okay, this is their team. I'm just here to make sure this don't fuck up. So I kind of like that, but there's a thin line to, you know, between the GM and the president. And I really wish they would have went into detail as to how that power dynamic is going to work. Because we had a GM that apparently ain't have no pull, none. So the one thing's for sure, they have to hit a home run with the president of football. They have to hit a home run with the GM, and they have to hit a home run with the goddamn head coach. To me, this isn't that hard. We play in a division where the Carolina Panthers are hosting a playoff game with an 8-9 record. Both years, by the way, Atlanta could have won this division. But again, when you have 2 years where you lost for an entire month in both years, you're really not making the playoffs. And the crazy thing is we did it this year and had a 3-way tie. It's not that hard to turn this team, and we have the better roster. We have the best roster in the NFC South. This thing can get turned around in an off season. But my number one rule, interview the offensive coordinators and the defensive coordinators. Interview them. Don't fucking hire them for a head coach. I'm looking at guys. Stefanski ain't even on my record because I saw what they did to Shedeur. I don't want that. You got a guy in Baltimore that got released. Depending on what happens this weekend, they might part ways with Mike Tomlin. Mike McDaniels got fired this morning. Hell, I'm not hiring him as a coach, but as a coordinator, I'm gonna keep my eye on him. You got some buzz with Mike McCarthy now. He's getting some calls. Pete Carroll got fired after 1 year with the Raiders were trash. I don't care who you would have put in there as a coach this year. They weren't going to do anything. They didn't have the players. So you got a couple of guys on the market right now that have a winning resume and have a chip. I do not want to hear an offensive coordinator or a defensive coordinator getting their first shot with Atlanta. I don't give a fuck. Kubiak already out to me. He don't qualify. So when Blake was talking about John Harbaugh, he made the mention, he's got to want to come here. And I kind of like what Atlanta's, they getting some of these interviews out the way. Some of these obligatory interviews. These guys ain't getting hired. They getting that out the way now. Because he mentioned Harbaugh isn't taking any interviews until next week anyway. And if Adam Schefter's, he's been talking about this, since he got fired. Man, Harbaugh got people calling him that got coaches right now. There's 7 vacancies, and he's getting calls from teams that got coaches. So again, you need to hit a home run with the head. I'd say you need to hit a home run with the head coach first. But you got to hit on all 3 phases. We don't know what Matt Ryan's position is going to be because he didn't mention it. It's going to be interesting, man. Or John Harbaugh. My bad. What's going on? What's going on, Ryan? What's going on? Thank you for the correction, sir. William says, I think Mike Tomlin's staying. I don't know. I don't know. They've had years of making the playoffs only to get bounced after the first round. And mind you, a couple of years, the fans have kind of wanted Mike Tomlin up out of there for the last couple of seasons. So I'm kind of reading the stuff about Harbaugh, some of the stuff that's kind of coming out now and I don't know how factual it is, with Lamar Jackson not being on the same page, some of his coaches not being on the same page with him. They're saying he lost the locker room. But if you look at the last 3 playoff runs or shots to the playoffs, that wasn't on Harbaugh. Your field goal kicker missed the damn field goal that would have put you there. The year before, Mark Andrews dropped the ball, 2-point conversion. I remember watching that. I'm like, bruh. Lamar Jackson did everything that he could do in that game, only for Mark Andrews to drop that ball. Then you had a fumble. Like, you can't put all that on the coach. So, but 18 years is 18 years, man. Sometimes the message gets lost. I always bring up Andy Reid in Philly. They were winning in Philly. It got to a point in time where it's like ownership just felt like they need to go into another in a new direction. With Reid, we just simply can't get there. For whatever reason, we can't get there. And then Andy Reid went on to Kansas City, won some chips. Philly won some chips. So I don't think that was a bad decision on both parties. But I just look at, if Tomlin loses, the fan base gonna want him out of there. And Tomlin's got a winning. He's never had a losing season. And cats in Pittsburgh, like, man, we probably need to move on, champ. So again, there's gonna be some names that pop up. it seems like Arthur wants to get it right. I like the fact that he was the only one there. I like the fact that, you know, he basically told everybody, hey, I'm going to keep Rich McKay so busy, he can't even be involved in football relations. I'm going to keep this man. So I put him somewhere where he's got to eat breakfast, lunch, and dinner 5 days a week over there. On top of this other stuff I got him doing on the weekends. He ain't going to be able to see this building really. So that was a good way of telling us, hey, I'm not firing this guy. You know, I'm not firing him. But I didn't expect Rich McKay to get completely fired like that. Rich McKay is going to fail upwards, not down. But to keep him away from the building, I like that. I like that. So, you know, and then, you know, Art was telling some half-truths on some things too about the decision making in this last regime. One guy has to make the decision, but not one guy makes the decision. I'm like, bro, huh? You got everybody's input, but one guy has to make the decision, and it ain't Blank. So I'm like, who was the guy making the decision? If it ain't you, and it's a collaborative thought process, who's the guy that says, God damn it, we're going to sign Kirk Cousins, which I understood at that time? Who was the guy that said, God damn it, we're drafting Michael Penix at 8? I want to know who was the guy that pulled the trigger. If we're going to talk about accountability and transparency, he could have started there. Because I believe some of these moves Terry Fontenot did not make. We know he didn't make the Arthur Smith hire. We know that. The Raheem Morris hire? I just don't, man, fam, I'm going to get just absolutely raw. I'm going to get absolutely raw right here. I don't think Terry made that hire. All these moves that Terry made for players. Now, he came in and went for broke for Deshaun Watson. I am so glad that Cleveland stepped in and said, hey, we'll take it. He came in taking swings. So much so, Deshaun was basically here. And then Cleveland went in and made that dumbass offer that Deshaun could not. That's generational money right there. Fully guaranteed. But look at all the moves that Terry attempted to make and Terry did make. I just don't see in any world where they interviewed all these coaches and Terry himself said, I think Raheem's the best out of everybody that we interviewed. Because mind you, Art mentioned himself interviewing these guys. Raheem was a safe bet. He was a yes man. Because mind you, they had Belichick in the building. Man's got enough rings to put one on his dick. And y'all let him walk. The guy that beat you in the Super Bowl, by the way. So you let a proven winner walk for a proven loser. I just can't see Terry doing that. So I believe in my heart of hearts, Blank came to the conclusion that Rich McKay, he made the last wrong decision. Because looking from Rich's perspective, if we hire a guy like Bill, he's going to want control of everything in the building. That means I lose control. Not Art. We can't hire him. Hey, listen, Beatles, we're on the same page, and you know. And Art went with that. So who do you think we should hire? Man, Raheem, he's a good guy. We had him as an interim. We made some, that you remember that year. I like what he said. He won a chip in LA. It seems like, since he's left, he's gotten a lot of things together. So I think we should give him a shot. Terry might have been moving a completely opposite direction for head coach. But mind you, when they got rid of Arthur Smith, who was sitting there at the end of the year press conference? It wasn't our GM. It was Blank, and it was McKay. Meanwhile, everybody in Atlanta is like, where the fuck is Terry at? I just don't believe Terry made the hire for Raheem Morris. I believe he had to go along with it. And he paid the ultimate price. So it is what it is. You can't get this offseason wrong. And the thing is, you don't even have to maneuver the players. Now, your quarterback, you're gonna have to find a bridge until Penix gets healthy, whether that be, somebody like Kyler, whether that be somebody like Tua, whatever. You're gonna have to find a bridge. This is why you need a good head coach. And again, you're gonna have some options if some guys get let go, if LaFleur gets let go, if Tomlin gets let go. The benefit about the coaches that might become available and some that are already available, they've won with different coaches. Harbaugh won with Flacco. Flacco don't really have a lot of movement. He won with Lamar. Lamar's got ultimate movement. God, look at Tomlin. Tomlin had a bevy of quarterbacks. Some were bums. Never had a losing season. So I'm looking at that too. If you're going to bring in a bridge quarterback until Penix gets healthy, you need somebody that's done this already. Because Kirk is not gonna he's not gonna be here. He's not gonna be here. So Monty says he ain't going to Arizona. Hold on, let me look this up real quick. I just, man. Whoo! Raheem don't even deserve a job, fam. I'm just gonna be real. I see a rumor mill. He hasn't committed to anything. I'm seeing the Giants. He had dinner with the Giants. I just can't see nobody hiring this man as a head coach, bro. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. This man has a losing record as a coach, and he lost in this division with this team that he was gifted. You let the Giants sign him. They ain't got nothing to lose. They've been losing for a while anyway. But anyway, that's no longer our concern, right? So I would prefer a coach that's done it. And I mean, Harbaugh fits the bill, but man, he's going to be in demand. He's done it on the offensive side, the defensive side, the special team side of things. But man, there are so many teams that are probably going to be willing to just throw everything at them. And I think a lot of teams have an advantage over us because you have to look at the power structure. Exactly how much power is Blank willing to give a head coach when you're bringing in a president of football? And I don't think Harbaugh is one of the guys that wants to be told what his staff is and who he has to let go. One of the rumors going on in Baltimore is he didn't want to let go of Monken. But the owner wanted to let go of him. And you can tell by the exchanges after he got fired, Harbaugh didn't want to go. So again, that plays a major role in it too. Hey, how much power am I going to get over here? Who do I have to report to? And it seems like this head coach is going to have to not only report to the GM, but also the president of football. Whereas for pretty much 18 years, Harbaugh had a direct line to the owner. He only reported to the owner. So it's going to be interesting, man. If you can get them in the building, you're going to have to forfeit some stuff. But that's not a one-all end-all. There are going to be some other coaches that become available. You know, you just have to make sure you hit a home run. John Brooks, let me get to some of these comments. What's up, y'all? John Brooks says, Mark, I'm going after Harbaugh. I don't care if he wants to be in command. Hey, listen, you pay a premium for the kind of coach I want. If you're hiring a first timer, they're gonna answer to the line cook. They're gonna answer to 5 or 6 other people before they actually get to the owner. Well, let me correct that, because apparently Raheem didn't have to answer to nobody. That special teams coach is gonna haunt me for a while now, because everybody knows he should have got fired. I don't know why Terry did not, especially when he knew Terry had to know his job was on the line. And Terry outranks Raheem. So I don't understand why that decision was not made, but the receivers coach decision was made very early in the season. And it was performance-based. We were told that. It was performance-based. But you kept a special teams coach who was absolutely trash for the entire year. If I'm Arthur Blank, just based off of that, I had to get rid of Terry. And it seems like Blank was somewhat hands-off this year. So him being 83 years old at this point in his life, yeah, goddammit, I'm bringing in a president of football. I can't control everything that's going on. I'm not here every day. But the president of football will be. And I'm telling you, if I had that position, if they would have had that position this year and I was the president, y'all know Raheem would have been fired. That's what accountability looks like. You can leave, and this just in. The Atlanta Falcons have fired Raheem Morris and their special teams coach. That'd be Adam Schefter. Then that Sunday, I'm holding the presser. I had to get him up out of here, man. What was the decision making of letting Raheem go after just 5 games in his second year? Listen, I saw what I needed to see last year, man. We talked and we evaluated, and I gave him a chance this year. I just don't like the way things are going with the team that we put together. So yeah, I let him go. And the special teams coach, listen, he was cheeks. I could never be in sports like this. I don't know how to be PC. That would have been my statement to the special teams coach. He was cheeks. What is that? He was honey buns. What does that even mean? Listen, teams think shit sweet when they come play us. That's why we honey buns. special teams coach, Cheeks. Head coach, Cheeks. I had to get him up out of here, man. This culture of football, we don't accept Cheeks. And they got to hit a home run with the president of football because he has to have that type of mentality. You can't put no yes man up there. You got to put a man in there that's, hey, listen, I know we all came same time. And they're hiring the president of football first. Whether that be, we don't know if it's Matt Ryan. We assume that. But Blank said they interviewing for it. And Matt Ryan is one of the candidates. Now, do I think Matt Ryan will hold people accountable? I mean, this is a guy, was it Julio or Sanu? Where he got caught on that hot mic talking about get fucking set. And this is, you know, his last 2 years of being an analyst. I don't believe, I'm not one of those guys. Ryan said it was Julio. Yeah, so you telling your premier receiver, get fucking set. As far as experience with the position, here's what I've learned in life. You can have somebody that comes in with absolutely no experience, but learns the job like that. Has the intelligence to do things at a optimal rate. Whereas there's somebody that's been sitting there 20 years that got absolutely comfortable. There's something that I remember Bill Gates saying, this might have been 15 years ago. Where he talked about how he would hire a lazy person before he would hire somebody that was gung-ho. And his reasoning for it is lazy people find the simplest way to get the job done. And it's effective. And I'm like, I couldn't agree with him more. Because when I was working a 9 to 5, fam, listen. I wasn't the one that would go out the way to impress management. No, I would find the easiest way to get this job done. And I would do it that way. So sometimes experience comes into play when you're good. Nobody ever talks about experience for people that are trash, like Rich McKay. Rich McKay's got all the experience in the world. We want him out the building. So in certain spots, man, experience. I can't tell you how many people I've hired in management that had minimal experience. They got the job done. I'll tell you a quick story real quick. When I was working for Kroger, I worked for Kroger 11 years. From the day I got hired to the day I quit, it was 11 years on the dot. And I was a department manager for, 6 of those years. Yeah, 6 of those years I was a department manager. I transferred to a store, relatively bad store. And we had inventory. Well, I was a department manager for 5.5 years. The last 6 months I wasn't. But from the time I got there to the time I stepped down, my department was the only department that was in the green during inventory. And then like after inventory, they would have like the regional manager and some other high ups. They would actually come to the store and evaluate our inventory. And it got to a point to where like every department kind of had to account for why they were in the red. And they got to me, I think it was like the 4th year. They're like, how are you in the green? Like, you're the only department in the green. I'm like, I just do the job the way I'm supposed to. And I'm not going to lie. I was probably the laziest department manager there. I'm not staying past 8 hours. I'm not doing none of that shit, right? But I knew that department inside out. So because I knew that department inside out, I was more effective. But I wasn't the hardest worker at all. I'll admit that. But I knew, like, case in point, they would tell us, don't change the way that you order a truck when inventory is coming, right? I'm like, y'all must be out y'all fucking. I ordered the lightest trucks 2 or 3 days before inventory. Reason being is because I knew what had to be filled on the shelf and what could go a truck. So I'd order a truck that's like 300 pieces because I knew, one, I wanted to keep my inventory down in the freezer so it would be easier for me to count. And anybody that's done inventory in retail, you got to count everything. And I'm like, I'm not about to spend 5 or 6 hours counting product. No. I could be doing something else during that time. And that's one of the reasons why I was always in the green. You had motherfuckers, at the last hour still counting shit before the inventory crew came in there. Man, I was in the break room sipping on coffee. Georgia Pride says, Mark said 8 and I'm out the gate. Dude, I wasn't even speaking English once I hit the clock. Hey, man, how's your department look back there? See? Bruh, I was out at 8, and at the end of my tenure there, they were lucky to get 8. So for me, experience in a position that you've never had before, you just need somebody there that has the guts to tell the GM and the head coach when something's fucked up. Y'all need to change that. Don't make me change it. Because I got the pull. Y'all report to me. Don't make me change it. And I think if we had that type of accountability this season and the previous season, in my heart of hearts, Raheem would have got fired mid-season. But it would have forced us to do some things that we just let linger. So I like the direction, man. I just, you got to get the right coach in here, because we have to have a standard and we have to have a culture. We didn't have a culture under Raheem Morris. What was the culture? We got to find a way. That was the culture. We got to find a way. The culture was being out-coached. The culture was us screaming at the TV because our offensive coordinator was absolute ass. Blowing division leads. Drinking before the game starts. Drinking after the game starts. Trying not to stroke out during the game. Missing 3 quarters only to see the 4th quarter over and over and over and over and over again play out the same way throughout the season. That's the culture. Oh, we got to change that, baby. You got to bring in somebody that these players can look at and be like, oh, he's won before. He knows what it's like to hold up a Lombardi at the end as a coach. You know, now do some coaches get raw deals? Of course. I don't like the way they did Pete Carroll. They're talking about Aaron Glenn up there in New York. Man, it's time for us to get enough. Bro, y'all ain't even gave this man a chance. And that team ass. That team was ass with Aaron Rodgers there. Y'all expected to turn around with Justin Fields instantly? But yeah, they talking about getting off of Aaron Glenn. That's why I can't justify giving Raheem Morris another season. I couldn't justify it. Pete Carroll done won on the collegiate and professional level. Man, the man was winning with multiple quarterbacks. And they let him go. He walked into a burning building and they let him go after one. So you couldn't have justified Raheem coming back. Now, I will say with the coach that we bring in, the expectation to win immediately, that's a legit expectation. You're not walking into a rebuild. You might have an issue with your quarterback situation. That's something that you and the GM are going to have to figure out. Because I'm almost for sure Kirk Cousins is up out of here in March. You can bookmark that. So you're going to have to find a bridge. Now, the interesting thing is this. Let's say you bring in somebody like a Tua, just any random bridge quarterback, and you start winning with him. Michael Penix gets fully healthy. What the hell is the situation? Do you take your bridge out? And let's say when Penix gets fully healthy, your bridge is balling. We got a winning record. We're in the lead in the NFC South. Do you pull your bridge quarterback for Penix? I wouldn't. And here's why. Penix isn't going to have a training camp. Penix isn't going to have a preseason. Penix has to learn a new system, which again was another reason why I wanted Zach out of here as soon as possible. I knew he was going to have to learn a new system anyway. So the system he was learning was absolute trash to begin with. But neither here nor there, time's gone. But he's going to have to learn a new system, and he's not really going to be able to run it because he's not playing. So if you're bridge quarterback, we got a winning season with the bridge. I can't see putting Michael Penix in there. Not this year. Now, if we're losing, yeah, put him in there. We can really see if we got a franchise quarterback in Michael Penix. If when he's healthy, we're losing. But if we're winning, I don't really want to see him until the offseason. So, and then this will be what, year 4? These are decisions that the GM and the head coach, they're going to have to make these before the season even starts. These what ifs, these hypotheticals. And the president of football, he's going to have to roll with it. Because he's not controlling the roster, which he shouldn't. He shouldn't be controlling the draft either. And to be honest, if I'm being real with you, the only voices as far as who's on the grass, that's between your GM and your head coach. I don't even think the owner needs to be involved. I don't think Blank needs to be involved. You're president of football? Okay. This is what y'all want to roll with. All right, cool. I'm with it. But if this train goes off the track, trust me, I'm being your office. But you got to let the GM and the head coach do their thing on the grass. So we'll see what happens, man. They're currently interviewing. I don't see them pulling the trigger on a coach no time soon. Because again, you still got some of these coaches might become available. Now, to me, LaFleur, I don't see it, fam. And the reason why I don't see them it would shock me if they let LaFleur go. Dude, Green Bay, they keep coaches, bro. They keep coaches. You want to talk about stability? Pittsburgh and Green Bay. And you can throw Baltimore in there. They keep coaches. So it would be a shock if they let LaFleur walk. I can't see that. Tomlin, I can see. And honestly, that's where the buck stops for me. Gruden is I like the culture that he would bring, but man, that is a dark horse at this point. They are he's a dark horse. I would look at him if all these coaches are off the table. But I'm definitely looking at him before I look at a first-time OC or a first-time DC. I just, you can't keep making that same move. And the DCs and the OCs that we've hired as head coaches, they've proven that they don't know how to close out. Monty says he's got too much smut on his name. The city gonna holler if they hire Gruden. I would, at this point, with the candidates that you got out here now, we can make an argument, man, Harbaugh can't leave the building. But the truth is, there are a lot of other teams that are thinking the same exact thing. So it comes down to if Harbaugh wants us at the end of the day, because there are going to be other teams that are going to, hey, you're not leaving the building. He's got to want to be here. And my only pause to that is we've already admitted that we're adding an extra layer between the head coach and the owner. He's not used to that. That's why I'm like, man, Tomlin. But again, Tomlin ain't even fired. So that's wishful thinking at this point. But I just hope it doesn't get to a situation where we miss out on a quality coach and then we got to go after one of these first timers and then just cross our fingers that he knows what the fuck he's doing. Because out of all the coaches that we've had, Mike Smith was probably the only consistent. Dan Quinn had pretty much 1 year. Well, I'll give him 2017, but they hired Sarkisian. That can never be forgotten. And then after that, he had losing seasons. So you look at Arthur Smith. Arthur Smith never had a winning season. You look at Raheem. Well, we just went through that. You go back to Mora. You know, there's a common theme with all these guys. You got to bring in somebody that's done something. So if we miss out on all these coaches and Gruden sitting there, I'm going to look at Gruden and I'm going to look at one of these first-time guys and I'm going to pick Gruden 10 out of 10 times. I like Brian Flores. He's been a coach. But there were also issues between him and the players. I really like Flores. I think Flores got shafted. But I'm dying on that hill with this coaching hire. This go around. I'm dying on the hill. You got to have some dubs. You got to have some dubs on your resume, or you got to have a chip. Now I'm looking at, let me pull this up real quick. All right, so let me pull this up. And let's share this. Hold on, y'all know I'm a bit old, so I have to make sure I ain't pulling up nothing else. All right, here we go. All right, so let's take a look here. So this is the bracket that we got, right? The Broncos, #1 seed. Seahawks, #1 seed. Now the Broncos, they were a mediocre team. I can't really say they were a bad team before Sean got there. They were mediocre. Russell Wilson's last year under Sean, it wasn't a bad year, right? But they ate Cap to get the boy up out of there. They ate Cap, right? Now they're the #1 seed inside 2 years. You look at the Seahawks, right? A lot of their fan base had issue with letting Pete Carroll go, right? Because Pete Carroll was winning. He was winning games. Their head coach is goddamn, who is their head coach? I know his first name is Mike. But you know, again, that's an outlier right there. Now, Seattle to me had the type of year that Washington had last year. They could have lost a lot of games, fam. They definitely should have lost that Rams game. Right? But this is one of those situations where you have a first time head coach. Right? It's rare. Now you look at all these other spots. Rams, well, they got McVay. Panthers should not be there, but nonetheless, they're there. And I think their coach, I think he's a first timer too, if I'm not mistaken. But when we get down here, Eagles, 49ers, they've got established coaches. You look at the Packers, Matt LaFleur has been there for a while, right? The Bears are actually impressive. Eberflus got fired again. This guy got fired last year as a head coach, and then they let him go as a coordinator. How you get fired twice in 2 years? You gotta be ass, right? So you go over here. You look at the Bills. Bills have had their coach for a while, established. You look at the Patriots. Patriots have Vrabel. Vrabel's been a coach. Had a good run in Tennessee. You look at the Chargers. The other Harbaugh. Got a track record of winning on the collegiate level and the NFL level, right? I like what's going on with the Texans. It's a young team. how old is their coach? He's definitely younger than me. Hold on, let me take a look. How old is the D'Amico Ryans? Okay, so he's 40. He's 41. But he's been doing a good job there, right? You look at the Steelers, it's Tomlin. So again, who do I think is going to win the Super Bowl? I think it's between Denver. Here's the thing. And y'all can comment in the chat who you think is going to win the Super Bowl. I'm going to give you dark horses. I think the Rams are going to end up in the Super Bowl. And I think it's between Denver and it's between the Jags. I don't see, honestly, I do not see the Steelers beating the Texans. I don't. This is why I'm like, and I low-key hope they lose so that Tomlin talk can get hot. But I just don't see him beating the Texans this year. I see the Jaguars beating the Bills. Man, they might score 512 points in that game. But I see the Jags beating them. The Patriots and the Chargers, I like the Patriots, man, and they might have a candidate for MVP. I think they could potentially lose to the Chargers. But even if they win, I don't see them making it past either the Jaguars or the Bills. So if you got the Jags moving on, they would play the Patriots or the Chargers. I think they can beat both. And then they would get either the Broncos or the Steelers or the Texans. It's probably going to be the Broncos and the Texans. And I got the Broncos beating the Texans. So you would have the Jaguars and the Broncos in the AFC Championship game. And the Jaguars then already stomped the shit out of the Broncos. So, yeah. Ski says, look at Ben Johnson, first-time head coach. Yeah, it's, again, for me, I don't see us. We've been hiring first-timers for 20 years, and it has not worked. I see it working for other teams. I just don't see it working for us. And then when I look at the other side of things here, the Seahawks have the bye. I think the Seahawks are getting bounced out in the divisional round. And I think they're going to get beat by the Rams. Now, this is an interesting thing because the Panthers have already played the Rams. I told my partner, I'm like, man, I got the Rams going to the Super Bowl, but it would not surprise me if the Panthers sneak one out. It would not surprise me. And then when the bracket fell the way that it did, I'm like, ooh, that's going to be a game to watch right there. The Eagles and the 49ers. Sheesh. That's a tough one. I'm gonna throw that to the Niners, man. The Eagles just they've looked weird this year. And then I look at the fact that the 49ers were winning and Brock Purdy wasn't even there. That's a sign of and I do not like Shanahan, but my God, that playbook needs to go in the Hall of Fame. That playbook needs a gold jacket. Because they managed to stay afloat without Ayuk. They managed to, I think Christian McCaffrey was out for a couple games too. That game can go either way, but I'm gonna lean more towards the Niners, man, because the Eagles, even though they're 3, they haven't looked dominant. Ski says the Jaguars head coach is a first time HC. Yeah, they listen. it happens sometimes. We have not had the luck of our first time outside of the early era of Smith, outside of the early era Dan Quinn. Sometimes first timers strike lightning in a bottle once or twice. I just don't think we can continuously do the same thing and expect a different result after 20 years. Let's see. Monte Carlo says that cold air in Philly gonna get in them California bones. It's gonna be interesting. But yeah, the guys, I got my heart of hearts. If the Rams get past the Panthers, I got them going to the Super Bowl. But part of me thinks, man, the Panthers gonna get one. They ain't making it past the division, but they can get one. And I'm just looking on the AFC side, man. I've watched quite a few Jacksonville games this year. And the one that stood out to me was the Broncos win. That shit was dominant. But we'll see. But when you look at a lot of these teams, they have established coaches. You know, you're gonna get some first-time head coaching. I don't think there's ever been a playoffs where you didn't have a first-time head coach that went to the playoffs. But for the most part, you're gonna have guys that have been there and done it. So, with that being said, fam, it'll be interesting. Again, we're going to go through the stages of interviewing guys. So when you see guys that are being interviewed and you're like, why are we even looking at them? Listen, it's a candidate. They have to go through the process. They have to go through the Rooney Rule, which at this point is a joke. Ski says we only have one first timer. Hold on. We only have one first timer and everyone panics. Dude, we've had a first time head coach for 20 years. 20 plus years, actually. Every coach that we've hired under the Arthur Blank regime has been a first time head coach. Then we went and got a guy from college that didn't even make it through the first year. And Raheem is actually, ironically, the only guy who isn't a first timer. He was just a loser. But everybody that we've had, whether it's Mora, Petrino, Mike Smith, Dan Quinn, Arthur Smith, first time at bat. Raheem was the only one that wasn't a first-time head coach. But the thing is, out of all the candidates that we interviewed in that coaching cycle, we chose the loser. So clearly that was, Rich McKay still had some influence. Yeah, he had major influence. But yeah, Morris was the only one. But there are some. We hired first timer Dan Quinn. Dan Quinn had that first year. That first year we didn't make the playoffs. And you ask a lot of people, fam. They give that Shanahan playbook that's going in the Hall of Fame the credit. Because in 2015, we didn't go to the playoffs, but we did beat Carolina. We did kind of end. There was a lot of, let me pull up 2015 real quick. All right, 2015. Here we go. So 2015, we were ironically 8-9. Ironically 8-9. We did not make the playoffs. But let me go to the end of the season. The end of the season, when you look at some of the stuff that we actually did, right? Actually, no, this is the. Oh, hold on. I did jump from there to there. Hold on. Okay, here we go. If you look at that season, I'm looking for the okay. So after the Panthers game, which was the only loss that they had, the next week we lost to the Saints 20-17. Well, that was the last game. But when you look at a lot of these games, oh, I forgot we lost to the Bucs that year in overtime. Really wasn't a good year at 8-9, right? But Dan Quinn, this was Dan Quinn's first year. Yeah, it was his first year, because the second year we went to the Super Bowl. So your first year, you're not going to get rid of anybody, right? So Kyle Shanahan was there. I remember the beef that him and Roddy White had, because Roddy White wasn't really with the way that Kyle Shanahan was calling these plays. We get off of Roddy White in that offseason, and then the next season we go to the Super Bowl. Right? The very next year in 2017, we go to the Super Bowl. We lose to the Eagles. I'm not saying Julio should have caught that. God damn, I wish he would have done. But after that, hold on, I'll pull this up. Actually, let me do it this way. All right, so we'll pull this up. All right, so let me know if you guys can see this. Damn, Julio almost went for 2K that year. All right, so we were. Another thing, we were 8-8 because we were playing 16 games back then. My bad, fam. So we ended at 8-8 in 2015. That was Dan Quinn's first year, right? The Panthers went 15-1. We gave that 1 L. We gave him that 1 L, fam. Now you look at what the hell is going on here? You look at 2016. Julio's numbers dip, but there's a reason for that. This was the last time we won the division, by the way. 11-5, we go to the Super Bowl. That's Dan Quinn's second year. You go to 2017. I think this was the year where all three of us made the playoffs, which is rare. But this was the year we lost to the Eagles. We beat the Rams in the wild card. We beat them, and then we lost to the Eagles, right? So we made the playoffs. So 2 out of 3 years ain't bad. This is where it started to fall off the cliff in 2018. We haven't been able to recover since. 7-9. Right now, mind you, you look at Matt Ryan's numbers in 2018. They were good. They were good. But again, we missed the playoff. We go to 2019. That was the year that the South was just terrible. Another 7-9 season, right? Not good. And I think, hold on, let me see. We got off of Dan Quinn this year, or was it the next year? Hold on. Okay, so he got fired in 2020. So that's the very next year coming up. At the bottom at 4-12. Mind you, we started out this year 0-5. So you're talking about in his 5-year tenure, if I'm not mistaken, we went to the playoffs twice. That was in 2016 and 2017. Outside of that, we weren't really a good team. And defensively, we were terrible this year. So I still say in this, since Arthur Blank acquired the team, our best coach has been Mike Smith. When we talk wins, it was the best coach we had. Dan Quinn, we just absolutely caught fire in 2016. And that's one of the main reasons why we give a lot of credit. Hold on, man. A lot of reasons why we give a lot of credit, and there's a lot of hatred. My bad, fam. And there's a lot of hatred towards Kyle Shanahan, is because our offense was top 5 in the history of the NFL. Our defense was ranked 27th that year. But you can have a defense ranked 27th when you have an offense that is just beating the brakes off of teams. So you give more credit to the coordinator, especially with history, time passing, and the fact that Kyle Shanahan as a head coach has been to the Super Bowl one more time than Dan Quinn, and should have won both. But yeah, my opinion is they need to hire an established coach, and we'll see if they do it, man. But I am kind of excited as to where we're gonna. It's the unknown now. We don't know what Atlanta's gonna do. We don't know who our president of football is. We can assume it's Matt Ryan. If they do decide to put Matt Ryan in that spot, I wouldn't be mad at it. You got an established baller. Listen, even though Matt Ryan fell off the bone, he is still a Falcons legend. So why not put him in that spot? The one thing you know for sure is he's going to be team first. I believe if they put Matt Ryan in that position, Matt Ryan would care about the well-being of this team. And then you got to get a GM and you got to get a head coach, which all in due time will be unveiled. After you get these pieces in place, you got to figure out, and fam, this is going to be before March. Trust me on that, because Kirk Cousins is going to get cut. And then that's what you got to decide. I think the first order of business is, who do you pick as quarterback? and then go into the draft because you don't have a first round pick, what's the first thing you get in the second? You know, because once this coach gets here, he has to put his staff together. Who's going to be our offensive coordinator? Who's going to be our defensive coordinator? To me, I'm more concerned on the defensive side of the ball because we were really, really good this year. So if it's not going to be Ulbrich, you better hire somebody that can consistently do what Ulbrich did this year. You can't fall off on defense unless you incredibly get an offensive coordinator that can guarantee you 28 points a game. But this is where the excitement comes in, because I do feel that there is a shift. There is a shift. This is different than the other times we fired people, mainly because there's always been that ghost of Rich McKay in the background. But now it's like, okay, I kind of feel Rich McKay ain't gonna be nowhere around this team. So we'll see, man. Alberto, let me get to a couple of these and I'm gonna get up out of here. Alberto says, Mark, how would a coach like John Harbaugh have an effect on the GM? Since Harbaugh hasn't had to answer to a GM in God knows how long, I don't know. Because Blank basically laid out how the structure was going to be. President of football, GM, head coach. Head coach and GM answer to the president of football. The president of football only answers to him. So that means there's a barrier between the head coach and the owner. I don't know, but again, man, John Harbaugh is going to have his pick of the litter. It just depends on where he wants to go. If he wants to go to the Giants, they would probably sign him. Well, not tomorrow, but when he starts interviewing, they'd hire him on the spot and pretty much give him as much control as he wants. You know, there are other teams that are going to be competing for that. Miami's in the mix now. You know, you get to stay in the AFC. Weather's nice. You're going to have to get a new quarterback. Tyreek Hill is coming back. Waddle had a pretty decent year. And they're probably willing to give more power. So I can't really answer that because I don't know who our GM is going to be. I don't know who our president of football is going to be. But for a guy to only answer to one guy for all those years where he could bypass the GM, I don't know. The only thing you can really sell him on at this point is, man, we probably got the best roster out of all these teams looking for a head coach. You got a generational talent in Bijan Robinson. And that's something that the president of football is going to have to sell to him, because they're hiring him first. This is how I kind of know that these coaches that are coming in, that are interviewing, they're not going to get the job. So your president of football is going to have to sell John Harbaugh on why Atlanta is going to be a great fit for him. And he probably is going to walk in there like Bill Belichick probably did. How much control do I have over the roster? Because I think most coaches, and this is just an assumption, I don't know it for a fact, but I believe most coaches, if they have complete control over that roster, they don't give a damn about who they got to report to. A lot of these coaches don't want interference on their roster or their coaching staff. So I think if the president of football said, hey, listen, draft room is yours. You're going to have to work with the GM as far as the free agency goes. But yeah, the team that you want to put together, you can. You just, between you and the GM, and you got to get a good GM in here too. That would be okay with some of the changes Harbaugh might want to make. So again, it's to me, you go after him. You definitely go after him, but you got to sell him on the fact that he's got to report basically the two guys. Coach's Corner says, I think a lot of people don't think about the fact that maybe John would be happier to answer to a GM, takes more off his plate so he can just coach. That is a thing. That could be true, because I remember when Kubiak, I think the last cycle where he was considering being a coach, he just wanted to coach. And I'm sure a guy like Pete Carroll, probably at this point, well, he definitely wants to coach, because he took the job. He took the job for, with the Raiders. But I'm pretty sure that could be the case too. I would say out of all the teams that need head coaches right now, we have the better roster. We do. So if I'm the president of football, I'm selling him on that. I'm like, listen, you come down here, we got a roster, we're gonna get the books straight, we're gonna get some of this cap. First year might be tough. We don't have a quarterback etched in stone. The one that we have as a franchise, he's probably out for 7 or 8 games going into this season. But the very next year, a lot of the books open up. And again, the GM is probably just as important, because the GM is going to have to make decisions too. Do you franchise tag Kyle Pitts? Do you extend him? What's the situation going on with Algier? Do you want to keep that two-headed monster in the backfield? A lot of these guys are coming up on extensions. Drake London. Are you extending him? What are you doing there? Darnell Mooney up out of here. So you got to come up with another receiver. Do you go after him in the draft, or do you look in the free agency? Is it time to look at somebody to replace Jake Matthews? So there are a lot of things that this GM is going to have to take on once he gets here. So I'm at a position, man. I'm kind of excited. I don't know who they're going after. I have no idea. But I would tell them to at least wait until after this weekend, where Harbaugh kind of gave them an alley-oop because he's not interviewing for a week. So we get to watch what transpires with some of these teams in the first round if they don't make it out of the first round. Jay Lana says Mooney's still under contract for another year. I wonder what his cap is. I don't think Mooney's going to be here. I don't think Mooney. And again, I like Mooney's talent, but he underachieved like a motherfucker this year. People will blame it on injury. He was running some lazy routes, and there was some balls he didn't even attempt to go after. Not to mention the drop passes. So I don't see Mooney being here. Matter of fact, I think Mooney's probably one of the guys that they look at first to replace, because he's not a reliable two. When Drake London went out and he had an opportunity to step up and show that he's at minimum a quality two, he didn't. So I'm looking for another wide receiver. It is what it is. I don't see Mooney being here, under contract or not. I don't see him being here unless his cap hit is something fucking ridiculous, which I don't see that happening. But it's going to be a fun offseason. I actually can't wait. Part of it is because Rich McKay is out of the building. So you get Matt Ryan. He ends up being president of football. That's going to be an interesting press conference to watch. And then Matt Ryan, if I'm not mistaken, Blank said that the president of football is choosing the GM and the head coach. If I'm not mistaken. So that's going to be interesting too. So if Matt Ryan does end up with that job, I'm going to have to go back because I think that's what Arthur Blank said. Once they hire the president of football, he's going to choose the GM and the head coach. So if it is Matt Ryan, man. Blake is giving a lot of power to this president. And I think it's time. So we'll see, man. We'll see. But anyway, fam, I'm gonna go ahead and get out of here. I've been on here for 2 hours. If I was to grade the press conference, I'd give it a B. There were a couple things that I don't think Blank was transparent on, mainly who was making the decisions for the last 2 years. But I do like the fact that he came out there by himself. He could have came out there with Beatles. He didn't. He came out there by himself. And a lot of the questions that he asked, or that he was asked, I was okay with the answers. But we'll probably, I think our first hire, it's early January. So if they're hiring the president of football first, you might see that within 2 weeks. So I think within 2 weeks, we'll get who our president of football is, because they're going to have to, and it could, I don't see it being no later than 2 weeks, because again, you got to get a coach in here. So I don't think they're going to be beating around the bush. So inside of 2 weeks, we'll know who our president of football is. And we might have our coach. We'll probably have our coach by the end. Hold on, what's today's date? Today is the 8th. I give it no longer than the 1st of February. Depending on who comes available. So inside of 2 weeks, president of football, and I think they're going to move quick on their head coach. Now, do I think there's going to be a GM hired before the head? I don't know, fam. I don't know if they're going to get hired together, or they hire a GM and then the GM and then they hire the coach. I will say this. If Matt Ryan is the guy that they're looking at for president of football, he needs to hire his GM first. Because this will be the first time Matt Ryan has been in a front office or in a position like this. So I think he'll hire his GM first, and then they'll hire the head coach. But once they hire the president, I think things are going to move fast. And because you got February coming up, you got stuff going on there. Then you got the March deadline. So you can't really be dragging your feet, but you can't immediately run out there and hire somebody tomorrow. So with that being said and done, fam, your boy is up out of here. I will holler at y'all sometime next week. I appreciate everybody being on here on the stream, everybody commenting. Y'all know I always appreciate the comment section, man. And y'all have a fantastic rest of the week and a fantastic weekend. I'm out of here. Peace.